Eighth graders, in your previous writing unit, you were writing literary essays. You analyzed themes in literature. You wrote about how authors developed these themes. And you wrote about the craft that authors used as well as the ideas they suggested. You're used to writing about ideas and to writing from sources. Even more importantly, the themes that you wrote about were ones that have moral implications, not just in the novels you read, but also in life. Those moral implications related to decisions about how fictional characters choose to be and how you as a person might choose to be. That work you did, where you analyze the moral ideas that a story suggests and the ways the author suggests those ideas, is work that you can do with nonfiction as well. Often, nonfiction authors take up moral dilemmas. A nonfiction text that at first seems lighthearted can actually be tackling a serious issue. I'm thinking, for instance, of Hijinks Shootout. As a piece of journalism, it is entertaining. It tells a good story. But it also reveals some real moral dilemmas raised when kids play games that simulate violence. These role playing games, like Killer. And just as you argued your points about important themes in literature, you can argue your points about important themes raised by nonfiction texts. Today, therefore, we're going to read that text, and we'll read it initially with a lens of how it suggests two sides of an ethical debate. First, I want to say a little bit about the direction we're going in this unit of study and why we'll start this way. The issue of how violence shapes teens is a serious one. Today, you'll be thinking about the impact of simulated violence on teens. It'll be interesting for you to compare and contrast these topics to figure out what you think about the lasting effect of imagery versus real violence on teens, and what that means for ethical stances you'll develop about how teens should be treated. You'll also begin by honing your argument skills, recalling and putting into play the considerable skills you developed in seventh grade, and readying yourself to dive into a troubling real life ethical dilemma. Today, I want to teach you that the text writers read often suggest debatable issues or ethical dilemmas that are hard to figure out and thus worth talking and writing about. To clarify their own stance on issues that are complicated, writers sometimes decide to argue one side or the other of these dilemmas, using all of their argument skills. We're going to do something unusual today. You will defend a position that is assigned to you, and I will be taking the same text to argue an opposing view. You'll have to use everything you've learned about argument. You'll think analytically to call text evidence. Analyze that evidence to formulate some main points, and then defend your argument using the most convincing reasons and evidence you can. The article that we'll be using was published in the New York Times. We'll be reading Hijinks Shootout, and here are the positions. The first position is that teens should be allowed to play violent role-playing games. The second position is that teens should not be allowed to play violent role-playing games. For this first activity, you'll be defending the position that teens should not be allowed to play violent role-playing games. So right now, you're taking your argument skills for a test drive. Let's see how good you are at arguing. What's tricky is the article itself isn't explicitly about this debate. The article tells an interesting story and teaches a lot of fascinating facts, but it doesn't come right out and say, this shows that these games are bad for kids, or this proves that all kids should play these games. You have to do that thinking work. You have to read closely, thinking about what this text suggests about this issue that can support your position. Before we get started, you're going to need a system for jotting notes. Think about all you know about gathering, sorting, and ranking evidence, and get yourself organized for this work. Go ahead and pause the video so that you have everything that you need in front of you. Okay, have you figured out a way to collect evidence so that you capture big ideas and specific detailed evidence? Let's see what evidence you can find and how you can make it work for you to defend your position. Listen while I read. Hijinks Shootout by Guy Martin. Inside the world of a killer high school assassination game. Killer, the last man standing game of water pistol ambush, has become a key end of the year ritual in several New York City high schools. At St. Anne's, a private school in Brooklyn Heights, the game lasts 2.5 weeks and is especially ferocious. Over the years, students there have developed a 17-point rule book, a map of the safe zones around the school, an entry fee, currently $20 per team. It goes into the winner's pot, and a non-playing senior class judge to arbitrate disputed kills and rule violations. The judge also makes a pie chart of death, the order of killing assignments, which he or she then distributes to squads shortly before opening day. I'm looking for some good massacres early, this year's judge said as the competition began the second week in May. Summoning what his classmates referred to as his inner lawyer, he asked that his name not be used. I've assigned at least one boyfriend-girlfriend kill that could be interesting. Initially, each team of up to 4 students is given only the identities of its immediate prey. All other players are anonymous, so that in the days leading up to the game, the school becomes a soak of intelligence gathering and disinformation. In 2007, Jake Protel, a freshman, distinguished himself by ferreting out the itinerary of a field trip that 2 targets were taking to Tel Aviv. Protel took a car to Newark Airport, found the victims before they passed through security, and dispatched them using 2 bathtub squirtfish. I had to get special permission from the judge for the squirtfish because I didn't want to take my gun anywhere near the security counter, Protel, now a junior, recalled as he paced Pierpoint Street, 3 water guns shoved inside the pocket of a hoodie. 18 squads of assassins signed up for Killer 2009, a total of 70 players, creating a pot of $360. Debaters, take a moment. Look at your evidence. What's your most important evidence? What reasons might you give so far to defend your position? Jot down your thoughts. Then, when you're ready, pause the video again and take 1 minute to defend your position. Make your case. All right, debaters. Later on in the lesson, you'll have a chance to then make an argument for the other position as well. But I want to give you 2 tips before we move forward. The first one is don't forget to state your position clearly first. It will give you more authority as you make your argument. You might even include some quotes that you jotted down. Use them. The next tip that I want to give is to use a sentence stem, for example. So you might say, for example, the judge talks about looking for some good massacres. That shows that he's being callous. It's not actually funny when people are getting massacred in other places, like on 9/11, or like when we read in Scholastic News about girls in Somalia. So do you see how when I said, for example, I actually then went back and cited something from the text as well as other examples in real life? We're going to take it up a notch now. This time you'll defend more academic points of view. I'm going to tell you your positions, and then here's a tip. You'll want to review all of the evidence you've gathered so far, as well as what you gather while you read the rest of the article. Lots of times you'll find yourself only leaning on the most recent evidence you heard. And actually, you want to look across evidence from the whole text, and then analyze and rank it. Here are the positions. Position 1 is role-playing games with simulated violence are perilous for kids. In position 2, role-playing games with simulated violence are diverting for kids. Perilous means dangerous or harmful, but it would be up to you to define what that means, whether kids face physical peril or moral peril, or both. Diverting means entertaining or amusing, but again, it would be up to you to define what diverting means, whether it's just entertaining or motivating or something else. In more sophisticated arguments like these, you have to define your terms as well as defend your positions. To continue with this lesson, go back to the platform for part 2 of this video.